Hey guys, it's Matt, and for this week's book vlog, we're going to be talking about A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. A couple things I want to say before we get into this little video. I really enjoyed the book. It was really heartfelt-ending. It was really sad to read. I really felt sympathy for Emily, which I'm sure, a lot of us did. It was a pretty sad book. There's a couple, quick disclaimer. I am at my car. I'm at work, so I'm just trying to do this really quick. But a couple of themes that I want to get into throughout this video was how one is the house. Obviously, the house is a big role in the book. The house was it was said to be a depiction of Emily's mental state, and then we have gender norms that were expected from her, or the expectations that were expected from her by the people in the South, her town that she lived in. And there's other themes, but we'll get into that throughout the video. But let's get into the house. The house used to be, or Emily's house used to be, beautiful, respected. She lived with her father, but it's now seen as decaying, and everything around her neighborhood is up to date, more modernized. It's something you would see, just around here, just more modern. Her house was the only one that was out of the ordinary, seemed unusual to the rest of the neighborhood, and it was just decaying and, how do you say it, like breaking down, I guess, which I guess that's what decaying means. Emily's house was full of a lot of dust. It was really dark in there, there's no life to it, seemed like it was just a house that was just left there, abandoned. Not abandoned, but it was just not changed at all. There's nothing new to it. There was old furniture, which really reflects Emily's mental, that she couldn't fathom the idea of change, of moving on, and having to change her lifestyle to something that was that wasn't fit for her. She wanted to keep everything as it was. She wanted to keep it as the past. She wanted to keep it just the way she wanted. So that there was a specific room. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I'm not trying to read them all off, but there was a specific room that stood out to me. It was upstairs. It was sealed off from the rest of the house. It was really locked. It was shut. But they were able to get it open, and it was a room that was decorated to be like a bridal room, like a bride room, which was pretty good. I mean, not pretty good, which is pretty sad. Sorry, I got distracted. But yeah, the room that was dressed as like a bridal room, bride shower, it really shows that she wanted to live, her happy ending. She wanted to fulfill her dream of marrying someone, being happy, growing old, just as every woman wants to, or maybe not everyone wants to, but and back then that's what they wanted to do, just live happy and just be happy with their significant other. And that's later on in the book, that's a dream that couldn't be fulfilled for her. Now we can get into about gender norms, and that was just about the house and her mental state, the rooms, the way it was described. Now we can get into about gender norms and the expectations that she were expected from her. So Emily, growing up, she was always not in control. She was controlled by her father. She had an overprotective father. He allowed no relationships, no connections to her to find any connections with one another. And the townspeople saw that. They saw every little thing that was happening in her household, and they were just not conspiring, just chit-chatting with each other, and just observing in on her life. So as one will, after being growing up, and you're just dependent on your father or a family member, after they die, she was she couldn't live independent. She was lost and confused. So she began to look around, and she began to gain a relationship with Homer. And the people didn't like that. The people saw that it wasn't deemed fit. The relationship wasn't good. They saw Homer like not as a marriage type of person, so he wasn't good for Emily. But nonetheless, Emily kept going through with this, continuing the relationship, and still, despite other townspeople, they didn't like that at all. Her being, they would judge her, being like saying poor Emily, or this is a bad look, a bad reputation for the young people, like not putting putting on a good first impression for the young ones. So the expectations, as we see in the book, as Emily's, she continuing her relationship with Homer, she's not passing any of the rules. They have really strict rules, and instead of kind of supporting her in a way, they just kind of not shun her, but they just observe what's going on, and they just have side remarks about her, and they just judge her on everything she does. We're gonna get into our last thoughts about the book, and the last thoughts right here that there is just a specific part in the book towards the end that it was pretty sad, and so we'll just get into that right now. It was the relationship between Emily and Homer Barron. I think that was his name. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. So Emily being abandoned by others, losing her father, she couldn't stand losing someone, someone she loved, Homer. So when Emily had gone to the store and bought some, kind of weird things, they assumed that she was gonna, I don't want to say, but leave the world. But instead, they learned that Homer was dead inside the house, and he remained there for years. They assumed more than a decade, but the body was there, preserved. In the book, there was a thing that was described that the townspeople found a strand of Emily's gray hair by a pillow next to Homer's body, which, if you think about it, it's kind of sad because the whole time he was dead, she was still laying next to him. Which, I mean, you can say it's creepy. It is creepy. It is creepy, yes. But it's kind of sad to think about. She couldn't lose someone that she loved again, and she wanted to keep them there, and she wanted, to have them forever. And it was pretty sad. She just wanted to be happy and have someone there with her and not be alone and so dependent on herself. And it was just a sad ending, and it was really, eye-opening, not eye-opening, but, just heart-touching, and it was really sad. But overall, it was a good book, about love. It was just sad. The ending really got me, kind of. But overall, it was a